What's up, folks? We're back. Leroy apparently like he stole a baby. It's nice.
First of all, I did not steal a baby. Everybody knows this is Owen, and he's my baby. Say hi, Owen.
Okay. I'm just saying you got like a cat burglar thing going on right now.
Are we at 30 seconds yet? Can I curse you out yet?
No, it's only 20 seconds. Sorry.
Man,
I mean, don't be mad at me. You're the one with the cat burglar looking look going on.
all I have is a beanie on. Shut up,
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah. So
racist.
this is Leroy's idea
What? It's a good
to
idea.
to do this half review of the season.
Mid-season review. That's what I said. Don't try to act. See, that's what you try to do. See, Owen, this way he does this. He tries to tear us down when we have a good idea. It was a mid-season review.
Hmm.
And we said, since the Super Bowl happened, they had an episode that Friday.
Uh huh.
It's episode 6, I believe it's coming out. Um,
That's correct.
yes, called Ken. And I said, well, let's do a mid-season since we didn't, so it's not a long review at the end of the season. Let's do one middle of the season and give our impressions and what we think is going to happen and how the season is going to end.
Okay. So you want to kick it off? I mean,
Um,
do you even say what we're talking about? We're talking about The Last of Us. I don't feel like we started that.
I figured the title would give it away, but I mean, it's up. I mean,
Last of Us is here. It's going on. HBO
HBO
Max.
Max.
It's killing the game.
It
People are
really
like,
is.
"Oh man, this is incredible. I can't believe this is a video game." Even Owen's
Even
like, "Yeah,
I know, buddy, it's
it's
great.
real."
So where would you put The Last of Us as a video game, even though you didn't play it, in your
Like I
canon?
recognize it. What I think it's a very. I think the gameplay because I let's slightly correct. I never finished The Last of Us. I
Okay.
played The Last of Us when
Hmm.
the first time it was released
And
on place. Sorry,
PS3.
sorry. I meant not the first time it was ever released, but like the time it was released for the first time on PS4.
So the remaster, the PS4 remastered.
Yeah, so
Okay.
because I think it came as a download when I bought my PlayStation 4 or something like that.
Hey.
So I
Mhm.
played that one for a little bit, and I was like, "Nah, that's too scary for me." So I dipped out.
Really?
Yeah, but 'cause, I don't like that feeling in games, like that dread feeling. I don't like that, so I don't play games that give me that feeling.
Your booty sweat when you playing it? Get a little
Yeah,
anxiety?
yeah, I don't like that. But the parts that I did play, I recognized that, oh, this is cool, and I like what they were doing with it. I will say, like the gameplay overall, the first one didn't really click with me, just in terms of I thought it was kind of some points like trial and error, and it didn't seem as organic as I wanted to as I'm moving through the area. That's just me personally.
Okay.
But the actual storyline I thought was cool, and the way it ended is like, oh, this is great, and just like the attention to detail with like the little things that you wouldn't think about. I thought that was great. So
Okay.
that's for me for Last of Us.
Um, we're talking about the game because the show is based on this video game, and we're trying to let people understand why this show got made and why it's such a big phenomenon. For me, this game is top 5 for me.
Okay.
This may be it's not my favorite overall game. But it is top 5 as far as like story, game mechanics, the feeling that you get to play while you're playing the game. It's very linear. It's not open world. I know, buddy. Uh, the characters you fall in love with, you are pained when they die. You meet some truly evil, horrendous, hideous people in this. Um, whoa, hey,
All right.
you want that back? Okay, I'll pick it back up. So for me, the game is one of those that I was like, this played like a movie.
Hmm.
The storyline was touching. So when it came to HBO Max, I had very high hopes because it was HBO Max. We've talked about the fact that HBO was home box office. It HBO has always been prestige television, so I
Hmm.
had very high hopes. And then they announced Neil Druckmann was going to be involved in one of the showrunners. And then they were like, "Hey, did you like that show Chernobyl? That was literally a walking real life horror movie, in 4 episodes. Craig Mazin is going to be involved in this show, so I was very intrigued and thought, okay, this is going to be good. Uh, I can honestly say this exceeded my wildest expectations. This show.
I mean, it's not even over yet. And you're already like, oh, it's done.
For what we've seen so far out of these 5 episodes, this has exceeded what I thought this show was going to be. I thought it was going to be good. I knew it was going to be good, but you can't just keep throwing it down there. But it's, I mean, obviously you can if I keep
I was like,
picking it up.
he can. He will prove you wrong.
Want to play with that? Want to play with Daddy's watch? But I felt like I feel like as long as they don't mess this up, this could be one of the greatest shows. Not just video, because to me right now, it's already the greatest video game show ever. Even with 5 episodes, it's so far. And the sad part about it is the bar is so low that
Yeah, I
it
mean,
didn't. It
like
didn't.
it kind of sucks, right? It's
Yeah.
so good, and you can't even compare it to anything else because it's hard to even really give it
Mm-hmm.
its props because it's so much.
Mm-hmm.
It's so above
Trash.
everything else.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, name some other video game shows that we've gotten. We got Resident Evil not too long ago.
Well, it's tough because I will say I really, really like the show Arcane on Netflix.
Hmm.
That show is really
But
good,
is that?
but
But
it's a
that's an
different.
anime
It's kind
show.
of different, right? Yeah.
So you can you. I
So
feel
you so
like
you want like live action shows then?
yeah, live action. Because I mean, if you think about it, you have Cyberpunk Edge Runners, and I thought that was really good. That fit into the world that is
Mhm.
Cyberpunk. I thought it flowed. I thought the animation was a little off sometimes, where I thought it was like, not as good. But I thought, as far as story wise, it
Mhm.
very much is in theme of the show. But when you're talking about live action, you have so many different examples of live action television and movies that just missed the mark. And this one, it seemed to be that they cared enough about the game to, how about keys? You like some keys? Yeah, you ass like keys, don't you? Don't lose them like your brother did. Um, then I couldn't get in the house. Uh, I feel like this right here to me proves that it can be done. That video games are high art. They tell a good story, and if you can make some changes here and there, we'll get into that in a second. But this proves that it can be done, and I don't know why it's so hard for all of these people to do it. I mean, you have one of the, I mean, from Resident Evil to
Well,
Halo.
here's a thing that people may not want to agree with,
Okay.
and it may be a hot take. I don't know, but
We do hot takes here.
I think the one of the things that separates The Last of Us from other stuff is that a lot of time, as great as video games are, and as entertaining as they can be because you're actually active in them, the stories aren't that great.
Okay.
So you're kind of like your bar is already, The Last of Us story was already so great, so they were already starting with something, up here. So it may be easier for them to adapt it because it was already such a monumental story to begin with. But a lot of times, video game stories are like,
True,
whatever.
but here's the thing. I will disagree to a certain extent because we have seen people take a 60-page short story and turn it into something. We've seen people take a book that may not have been that great and turn it into something. So I feel like let's
But
take
that's
like
that's a book. That's not a video game.
I understand what I'm saying is even with the little bit of story that you have when it comes to a video game where the story wasn't that good, you could improve upon that because we've seen it done before. A lot of people don't realize The Mist is a short story. The movie The Mist is based on a Stephen King short story. It's not a fully complete story as far as like The Stand, or Pet Cemetery that Stephen King did, and it's a very good movie. I mean, it's one of the. I mean, don't get me wrong. That the ending is woo. That's a hard ending, boy. If you hadn't seen it, I'm not gonna give you a spoiler alert, but oh, whoo, that hit. Um, so we've seen it done. So this right here, I think you can take liberties and fill in some of the gaps where the story is missing. But I just feel like no one took those video games seriously. Does that make sense? Like I feel like they felt that a lot of people making video game properties were like, the story sucks, so we'll just do whatever we want. Whereas The Last of Us, they knew the story was top notch, but they also took it seriously. And I think that's what in my opinion, because there's stuff that they've added that wasn't in the game. These vignettes at the beginning of each, at some of these episodes, that's not in the game. That's stuff that
Mhm.
they added on. And I think they took the story seriously enough that they were like, hey, let's
So
beef it up some.
we didn't talk about this before we started, but I guess we should.
Mhm.
There, like as we can imagine, there are probably some people who are coming to this just seeing the TV show, never
Yes.
playing the video game. So I guess
Mhm.
in terms of spoilers, we will only go up to episode 5,
Yes.
right? That makes sense. So we
Mhm.
won't spoil the video game at all
No.
past where it
Good
kind of
call. Good
lines up.
call.
Yeah.
Good call. Yeah. That was smart of you. That's why I keep you around, not just a pretty face.
Hmm.
Um, so let's start with the first episode. What did you think? And
Don't you have the titles? What's it called?
yep, the first episode is called "When You're Lost in the Darkness."
So this was very interesting because I like you talked about the vignettes at the beginning. I
Mhm.
thought this was a cool way to set up this idea of fungus and global warming and all these things because that's not how the
No,
virus or whatever you want to start
the
is
cordyceps
spread in the
in the
game.
game. Yes.
But this idea of oh yeah, fungus it needs to mutate because of the Earth's temperature keeps going higher and higher. Eventually, maybe it can live in humans. I think that's a cool idea, and they're kind of like on this 60s or 70s type of talk show, variety show, whatever it is.
Mhm.
And
The host wasn't expecting that. One man
no, because
came.
everybody got quiet, like, oh, this is, ha ha ha, yeah, it's funny. Oh no, this is real.
Because he
And
was
that,
like, because remember he was like, yeah, I'm not worried about that, and he was like, you not worried about that? He's like, nah, man, I got some other death stuff you need to be concerned about. And they was like, wait, what?
yeah, it was a very nice take and a good way to set the whole thing up. And then we go straight from that into a very cool intro sequence. Uh,
Yes,
I don't know who's doing these intro sequences from HBO Max
buddy.
or HBO in terms of Last of Us and Game of Thrones and House of Dragons, but
Yeah.
these production departments are killing it. Um, but yeah, um, and then we kind of get into the more similar beats to what you see in the video game in terms of
Yes.
introducing Joel, introducing his daughter,
Yep.
um, introducing Joel's brother Tommy,
Hmm.
um, and I really want to commend Pedro Pascal,
Why?
who is
I mean, I know why, but why specifically?
um, I don't know, and I won't say that he's underrated. Something about Pedro Pascal is he always delivers, but in my mind, I still feel like he's slightly underrated, and I don't know why.
Because it's always genre stuff.
Maybe,
Because if you think about all the stuff we know him from, especially recently, it's always genre stuff, and people don't typically give the genre stuff credence.
mhm.
Like, perfect example, we talked about the fact of spoiler alert for our press play this weekend is going to be about retconning. And if you, I know, buddy,
Hmm.
and we talk about the fact that a lot of the retcons happen in genre stuff because it's not one of these things that people take so seriously that you can kind of like just ignore other parts of the series and just pick a point and be like, okay, that didn't happen. I think that might be part of it. Um, but he was very like that. He had to be the selling point because he's the first person you see. We don't see Ellie yet. He had to sell being Joel. And if
Hmm.
you didn't buy him being Joel, for those of us who played the video game, nothing else mattered because you had to nail Joel.
Yeah.
Because Joel is who you control in the game, and Joel is the point that this story flows through.
Yeah, for me, everything about I don't know what Neil Druckmann and Craig Mazin thought up or as they were developing this show. They're like, we did a good thing, or Craig Neil Druckmann did a good thing with the show or with the
Mhm.
movie. Nope, sorry, I can't talk. With the game. So it's just so easy to lift direct scenes from the game and put it in the show and it just fits. So the people who have played the game like, wow, this is like playing the video, like
Mhm.
seeing it in real
Yep.
life from
Yep.
the video game. Other people are like, oh, this is just expertly directed, and
Yeah.
I think it just kind of gives kudos again to the game because it was so ahead of its time in terms of being like a movie that it just transferred very easily to TV.
And we got to give shout outs to another franchise. And only because I am a homer when it comes to Hideo Kojima, who his games, he's been accused of trying to make little mini movies in his games. And some of the cinematography in his games and some of the developments and the way the characters move, a lot of people have always been like, how is there not a Metal Gear Solid game yet? When you're literally already have half of the game being a movie. So Last of Us is not the first. I know a lot of people got upset by that when I guess one of the producers was like, this game changed everything. There were games that did this before, but the difference is in this one, there wasn't giant robots. There wasn't magic. You're not, in some far off land. You're not in Westeros. You're not in Elden Ring.
Hmm.
It's real life. And Naughty Dog has a very good track record. The Nathan Drake series, Uncharted. I mean, they're pros at this.
Hmm. So, what about episode one stuck out for you?
Um, Ellie and Joel. I mean, his daughter, not Ellie.
Sarah.
Sarah. Uh, Sarah had the beginning of the game starts the same way as the show. That relationship. This is his daughter Sarah. You're playing the game. The outbreak happens. I thought the show did a very good job of basically giving you and making you care about Sarah, knowing what's about to happen to her.
Hmm.
Um, I think they did a very good job of giving her more to work with because in the game you do get a little bit of that, but you don't get what you get in the show. And I
Sure.
think that's one of the things that the show does very well of taking a small playable part that you have in a game and then turning it into something to make you feel.
Hmm.
And uh, I want to get her name right. Nico Parker.
Hmm.
Uh, Nico embodied Sarah from the game for me. Um, you you felt that was his real daughter, um, and with everything that happened, it made it even hurt more than in the game. Even though you played it in the game, what eventually ended up happening to her. I thought seeing Fedra, seeing all the things that you play in the game brought to real life, and it looks real. In the
Hmm.
game, you see stuff, and you see cities bombed out, and you see all of this stuff. We've seen that kind of stuff before. We've seen that in, I mean, you name the game: Gears of War, Call of Duty, uh, Halo. We've seen battlefields, we've seen things. This was more real because you can imagine that happening because let's be honest, right now at the time of this we're doing this, there's literally a war going on in Ukraine, and we've seen those pictures, we've seen that video, we know
Hmm.
what it looks like. So when you see it in a show, you're like, okay, it looks real. And they did a very amazing job of convincing you that this could happen. And I think that's what's the scary part, that if something like this happened, this is how we would respond. And I thought that was very well done.
What do we think of the flour of it all? The flourness, the not eating flour cakes and not eating sweets and
It makes sense.
pancakes and all that stuff.
It
In
makes
terms
sense.
of, so when I saw the first episode, I was like, okay, this is really cool. And then I saw all these theories of like, oh, it's spread through the flour, and I think that was a very cool, whether it was intentional or not, that this whole movement in terms of how the virus spread this time in the TV show compared to the game, people had these ideas, and then in episode two, they go ahead and answer for you right away.
Well, before episode two even came out, Neil Druckmann and Craig Mazin did interviews where they were like, where people were saying it's the flour. They didn't eat the flour. They didn't have pancakes, and they were like, yeah, that's what happened. And I thought that was very interesting that the communication from the showrunners and the creators are very open and very and talking about the differences in the game to the show
Hmm.
because they know those comparisons are coming. Like they know that they know so many people have played this game. And let's be honest, I was a naysayer about remaking part one for the PS5. I was one of those people, why do you remake this? This thing just came out. We've got part two. People smarter than me were like, let's not listen to the Negro with the beard and the baby, and let's remake this game because that game has sold out. The amount of people playing Last of Us right now is tremendous. So kudos to them for not listening to me, uh, but they knew they were going to get all these comparisons, so they have been very open about like, hey, we decided to do this. And the flower thing I thought was that vignette with Jakarta. I thought that was so well done because you see it pop, that little thread pop up in other episodes when Joel and Ellie do meet and they're walking, and Joel is explaining to her what happened after what they found out. And we know that because we saw what happened when that woman saw the cordyceps and was like, and ran out of there, and she was like, it's over.
Hmm.
This is like,
Take me to my home. I'm
she
just gonna
was
be with
like,
my family.
she said, he asked, what can we do? She said, bomb. She was like,
Hmm.
you can't. And then she was, and this is what really got me, which this is what happens when I think was what was really powerful for a lot of people don't realize. She didn't run to get out. She knew there was no way I can run fast enough to get past this because it's already here. And
Hmm.
you saw a woman accept the inevitability and just said, I want to say goodbye to my loved ones because it's over.
Hmm.
You might be able to you might be able to save some other places, but for us, man, Doctor Strangelove ride the bomb all the way down.
Yeah, pretty much. And what's that episode title? Episode two.
Episode two is infected.
Infected. Okay.
Um,
Um, in this, I'm trying to think of what else really pops off in episode two.
Tess.
Yeah, I really like Anna Torv as an actress,
Mhm.
so I was kind of hoping we were going to get to see more of her throughout the show. Um, because of the way the game is spaced out, right?
Mhm.
You will probably spend more than 2 hours with Tess
Yes.
if you're not speedrunning the game. So really,
Yes.
you only get 2 hours with her here. It kind of sucks. I think she served a purpose. I think she was great in the small time that she had. I think that the infected kissing her was so creepy and scary at the same time.
Yeah.
And,
It's
and,
like,
it, and it was a different way that she went out because she died from Fedra, right?
Fedra.
In the
Yep.
game. Yeah.
She goes out, gone, go, just,
Yeah.
even Owen was shooting guns.
I do think she served a great purpose in terms of whatever the relationship with Joel was before, whether they were lovers or not. Joel definitely looked at her as somebody he valued her opinion.
I believe they
So
were lovers. I think
yeah,
you're right. They were. I mean, she came and got into bed with him after she, survived whatever happened. You know.
right. So when Joel was like, "No, I'm not transporting this girl," but it was like Tessa's dying wish. I believe that he wanted to honor her no matter what because of the bonds they had built up before.
See, I don't even see. I disagree on that. I think he's transporting her because he's like, I'm gonna get this battery. This is. I don't think I did. I don't think that the dying wish thing happened. I think he was like, you have caused me so much problems, and the only way to make this better is by getting you out of my life because he can't go back to Boston.
Hmm.
Tess is dead. I got to make the most out of I got to make the best out of a bad situation, and I think that to me is what he did. And I don't think that bond becomes real until episode three with Tess.
Oh, I'm not talking about the bond with
No, no, no. I'm
Ellie.
saying not the bond with Ellie. I'm saying the Tess's death doesn't hit him as hard until episode three. I think that we'll get to that. I think that part at the end of episode three, that's when it becomes real to him. And that's when he's like, okay, look here, eyes up. Like a
Hmm.
coach. Hey, 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 hey. Um, I agree with you. I wish we would have had more time with Tess. past episode 2, I wish this show was structured a little better, not better, differently, so that we could have had more time with her. But I will say, I thought the cordyceps kissing her was one of the creepiest things I'd ever seen, because you could tell she didn't want to do it, but when your body betrays you, and that's how horrible this is, that it's a violation, that
Hmm.
she literally is being controlled by an entity that's inside of you, forcing you. And that's when, and you could see like her trying to light the fire, and the whole time she's fighting this thing inside of her. I thought that was genius. Like that part is straight out of a horror movie.
Hmm.
So I think that was real good. I think the actual way she went out was very close to the game, where she's like, look at this. This is 3 weeks. This is a couple of hours. I thought she did a very good job, and I was sad to see her go.
So then we get to episode 3,
Ooh.
which
Now
is
this
what's
is
that
the
called?
episode. Episode 3 is called "Hey, buddy." Uh, long time,
Hmm.
and that is with. Let me make sure I get his name correct. That is with um,
You talking about Offerman?
Nick Offerman, but the other guy who plays Frank.
Oh, Murray Bartlett.
Yes,
Murray.
yes, correct.
Yeah. Yeah. This was very. I feel like this is probably the biggest departure from the game, just
Yes, one of the biggest.
because.
Yes,
I mean, at least at this point, because we didn't really get that backstory
no,
that we got with Bill and Frank.
so for those of you who have not played the game, we never see Frank. You see Bill, you meet Bill, and you have to get a battery for a truck. And Bill gives you instructions on where to get that
Well,
battery.
you see Frank's body, right?
You see Frank's body eventually.
Ain't he hanging somewhere? Yeah.
You see him eventually, because remember, in the game, Frank leaves Bill. They have a falling out, and Joel asks him. Joel asks Bill, "Where is Frank?" And he gives him a flippant answer. And they go to get the truck, and they go to get the battery, and they have this whole adventure. And they find a note
Hmm.
telling Bill, basically,
Go fuck yourself.
pretty much, man. I mean,
Yeah.
literally. I mean,
Yeah,
I think he
rough.
wrote that in the game. Go fuck
Yeah.
yourself. Um, so it's a very big departure, because we get to see who Bill really is. At the end of in the game, we just know he's a prepper who outlasted everybody else in this town. Um,
I I think it was ingenious casting to have Nick Offerman in this role.
mhm.
And granted, it's kind of because we've seen him in Parks and Rec as Ron Swanson and
Yeah,
the manly man that he is there, and just, I mean, he's kind of like a prepper at that point in that show, almost,
yeah,
at least that personality. So to see him in this,
more of a
to be
comical prepper. Yeah,
yeah, to be a prepper, but also have a softer side that no one really knows about, and he unleashes it to this new person that he found. I mean, it was just a very well done episode. Hats off to everybody in it. It was so great. Um, I know it's getting all the roses and the awards. I think it deserves it. I think when award season comes around, Nick Offerman should definitely be considered. Nick and Murray should be considered for like supporting roles in a limited series or something, because they're fantastic.
well, I mean, it was fantastic, but let's not overlook the fact that this was a very powerful episode, in the sense of you got to see an LGBTQ couple in a major piece of television, and in a way we don't normally get to see them. And let's also not forget, this was a very big review bombed episode. And I know this camera's like losing light for some reason.
Oh yeah,
Um,
your shadows are going in and out. It
yeah,
is
it's the
intense.
camera, guys. Like, comment, and subscribe if you want me to get better camera, so that
There
I can
we
get
go.
some money.
Yeah,
because
y'all want us to get better equipment. Like, comment, subscribe. Let's get these
I
numbers
got
up.
a better ring light. I can tell you I got a better ring light. That's why the light hadn't gone out in the middle of this taping.
Mhm.
But I'm gonna get a better camera. It's just but let's not run from the controversy that this caused a lot of people some problems because they were like, I can suspend belief and believe that the mushrooms could kill us, but two gay people in the apocalypse, pish posh. And it's like y'all need to get over that, man. I mean, y'all
I
need
wonder
to.
how many of those people didn't play the game.
Here's the thing. I think some of them did play the game. I think
Probably.
some. I think some of them did play the game. I think it goes back to a situation where if we hate what we don't know, and this is one of the biggest review bombed episodes. You've even had Bella Ramsey have to come out and say, "Look, if you don't like the episode, get over it." You know. Um, but it was very well done. And we're going to contrast these two episodes because we have a friend of ours, friend of the show, Vanessa. She said this was the worst one for her. When for me, I thought this was not as bad as the next one for different reasons. But I thought this was it
You
was sad.
should preface that it was the worst one for her because of what happened to them.
Yes.
Because the way you made it sound, you just said it was the worst for her. Oh, because there were two cavemen.
No.
Right.
Sorry,
Okay.
I don't. But what happened to these two individuals? I think
Yeah.
to me, they got to live a life.
Mhm.
They got to experience love. They had ups and downs, and I think that. Okay, buddy, go ahead with the beer. That's fine. I think it was sad because you didn't want to see it end that way, but you knew their love for each other was like, hey man, Romeo and Juliet.
Mhm.
So I enjoy. I really thought this episode was really good as far as like these. And here's another thing that I think this show is doing something the game tried to do. People just trying to survive and doing the best they can.
Mhm.
And that's what I think this episode did. This episode was kind of like that one of those moments in like The Walking Dead that you watch and you're like, what happened here? And you're like, they're just trying to survive, man. And this was the best episode, an example of that.
And one thing I don't want to gloss over is in the episode it starts with I think it starts and ends with Joel and Ellie, right? And in the middle is the Bill and Frank stuff.
I'm not sure. I know it ends with Joel and Ellie.
Yeah, then okay, it also starts that way too. Then,
Okay.
But when we're seeing mostly Bill and Frank's story, they go to a flashback where Tess is still alive, and
Yes.
Tess and Joel go there,
Yes.
and Joel and Bill kind of bond over this idea that we're killers. You and I are killers.
Yes.
We will kill
Yes.
people, and we will
Yes.
protect the ones we love. So they kind of form this uneasy alliance. And they realize we know what we are, and we know what we have to protect. So
Yes.
that does ring true to you with the when they get that note at the end, and there's that part about you have to protect Tess.
Yes.
That does,
Save who you can save.
yeah. So I just wanted
That
to bring that up. That was a good a
wrap up.
touch point. Yeah.
A throwback. Yeah. So for me, I thought it was very interesting that Frank in this couple, this agreement was the one who was, we can't be, we have enough that we can provide for others.
Hmm.
And we can trade, we can, we don't have to live a life of solitude, which honestly, that's what Bill had done. Bill had lived a life of solitude and basically, because think about it, when Fedra came, he knew Fedra was coming.
Hmm.
He was down there by himself. We know he lived there with his mom. His mom passed, or or something happened. But there was no one else in that crawl space or the basement with him.
Hmm.
He wasn't friends with anyone to the point where he felt he could chance helping someone else out.
Sure.
And Frank comes along, and Frank made him care. And he says that in the note. He says that I was happy the apocalypse happened. I didn't like people.
Hmm.
He said, I didn't get scared until Frank showed up because then I had to care. I had to open myself up to someone. And that's when he realized, oh, it's not just about me. I thought that was very powerful in the sense of making you care for someone who you probably would have thought was repugnant because he didn't try to save anybody. He
Yeah.
didn't like he like you saw him drive around. He saw the trucks coming. He didn't tell any of his neighbors they're not going. Like he didn't, and he knew what was going to happen because we saw what happened when Joel told Ellie to get off the we need to go this way, and she was like, "Nah, I'm cool. I can see what could you know." And then it was like, "No, little girl, he trying to help you. This is what was going to happen." And then we saw the dress. We saw the lady holding a baby, and we realized what federal or whatever the federal government was doing. Bill saw that coming. So you kind of start off with a guy who was just you were like, "Hey man, you ain't trying to look out." But then by the end, he was like, "Hey man, I don't like you, but I understand you and I respect you because you're doing the best you can." Really?
Almost doing the best he can.
He is not doing the best he can. He is not being helpful at all. But so yeah, I really enjoyed this episode. I thought it was really well done. Shout out to both of them, and I thought the ending hits so hard
Hmm.
because that's when Joel realizes Tess's death, and that's when I think that promise when he was like, "Okay, look here, little girl." So, and then we get to hey, we get to episode 4. Please hold my hand. And whoo, we meet that woman named Kathleen.
Now this is where my brain gets fuzzy in terms of
There
the
is no
game.
Kathleen. There is no Kathleen. They're just they get to they get to the city, and it's
Because
just
the city in the TV show is different from the city in the game,
yes.
right?
And
Yeah.
the city in the TV show it's Kansas City, and it is populated with people who have overthrown Fedra.
Hmm.
In the game, it's just raiders. You don't know who they are. They don't have any political or
Yeah.
but it's they're just people who are just trying to fuck up your day.
Hmm.
And but in the show we get a backstory behind all of them, and they have a leader,
Yeah. Catherine or Kathleen?
Kathleen.
Kathleen. Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know this actress, but she did a great
Oh, really?
job.
Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead.
What you do? What do you know her from?
So it's Melanie Linsky.
Hmm.
She's in Yellow Jackets. People love her and rave about her in Yellow Jackets. But
Okay.
I know her from a show that I am not proud to say that I watched, but I did. Uh, you'll probably never guess what show it is.
I'm not going to. I'm just waiting for you to tell me.
2.5 Men.
Oh, okay.
She was the crazy woman in love with Charlie Sheen's character.
Okay.
And she was like basically his best friend. And
Hmm.
she was this delusional young woman who was like, we're going to end up together. And she would show up and ruin dates. They would sleep together every now and then it was just they were hilarious. And that's where I first saw her.
Okay.
Now she's on Yellow Jackets, and whoo, she is a tour de force on that show.
Yeah. I like the idea of this woman. This could be like a suburban mom, white
Mhm.
woman, whoever, kind of leading this group of vicious hunters, these killers, right?
Well,
Because the world has changed. She's no
well,
longer who she was pre cordyceps.
here's the thing. I know that they're calling them vicious hunters. I know you're calling them that, but I don't. Here's the thing. I don't see them that way. I see them as people who have been pushed too far. Because remember, Fedra in Kansas City, Joel even acknowledges it when they meet Sam and Henry. We've heard the stories out of Kansas City. Kansas City was one of the worst places to be, and
Mhm.
so each of these cities ends up becoming a fiefdom, whoever's in charge of it. And we meet her as they have taken over, and these people are just they're fed up. Now they might have taken it a little too far.
Hmm.
they 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 might have let the anger get the best of them. But this is what happens when you push a group of people to the point, and then we find out later, um, you kill the person keeping them from killing you. So I would also like to point out. So you saw the guy. I think his name is Pierce.
Her
Um,
second in command or
Perry.
whatever.
Perry. That's Jeffrey Pierce. Guess who he plays in the game?
He's the voice
Tommy.
Tommy. Yeah.
Yep, he's Tommy.
Okay. Yeah.
So I thought that was really cool, and he looked cool as hell, man. Like I ain't gonna lie, I'd buy an action figure of him. Like he just looked cool with the gun, the beard, the way he carried himself. Like if he came to me right now, I was like, "Hey man, we need to leave this house." I'm like, "Hey Katie, man, get the kids, we got to go." I believe him.
I like in this episode that
Hey, stop that.
Ellie still somewhat has her innocence. I mean, as much as you can in this world, in terms of, are we going to stop for these people? When she sees, I mean, I think everybody in the world knows. Oh, clearly this is a setup that they're trying to stop this truck. But Ellie's like, no, maybe we can help this person. We don't know what they need. But Joel's like, no, we don't have time for that. I know what this setup is
Yeah.
because I run the same game
I've
on
done
other
this.
people, right? So I know what this scam is. We're gonna run right through them.
Yeah.
And Ellie wasn't really prepared for that at first. I mean, she gets prepared when she pulls out that gun and shoots the dude. But I just think that for a second, it's just she still has a little bit of innocence left. What's going on, baby?
I don't know. You see how he's doing? I think he's up to something because he keeps smiling. You see him? Look at him. Come on. There you go. I don't know what his little problem is. He up to something. But I this episode shows the difference in people, and this is why this two-part episode is painful for me in a sense, because you got to remember this is a girl who's never grown up outside of Fedra, outside of a QZ.
Mhm.
She never knew what life was like before any of this. This is the only life she's known, because we've seen her talk about these are airplanes. I've never been outside. Like she's just, and she doesn't realize the danger that this is. She doesn't realize like when Joel told her, or when Joel and Tess told her, yeah, you might be immune, but you could still get your throat ripped out by a bunch
Right.
of clickers. And they were urban legends. She never heard what they were really infected that can see in the dark. And it's like, no, echolocation. So shut up.
Mhm.
And it's like she did not understand the way the world works. I call those people in real life space cadets because their head is in the clouds. They don't understand how reality is. And I think this episode, more so than any other, was the wake up call that this is the apocalypse. This this is real life, and this is what end of days looks like. And it's like that meme. Have you seen a Bear Grylls where he's like, adapt, survive? Because that's what this is. You do whatever it takes to get to the next day.
Mhm.
And this episode proved why Tess said we're not good people. And you realize, oh, and then because remember, Ellie asked him, have you killed any innocent people? And Joel didn't want to answer that question.
Right.
And then later on, he was like, hey, this world is fudged, and I have done some things I'm not proud of.
Sure.
But you do what you got to do to survive. Um, so give me that back. I'm gonna tell y'all right now, babies are quick. Babies are quicker than you think. Hey, hey. So yeah, um, so yeah, I really like this episode. You saw Kathleen when she was like, who did this? And then she was talking to the man who did her doctor, the man who delivered her.
Yeah.
She walked
That's
back in there and she was like,
Yeah, she was playing no games.
Yep.
She took him out like it was nothing.
Yep.
Because I mean, she's just in that world now. Like, hey, I got to care for these people that are in my group
Hmm.
and nobody else.
And
Um,
and if you're an outsider, fuck them.
yeah,
Like remember Dave Chappelle and the copies in the copy skit when he was like at the end of it, he was like, fuck them. That's pretty much Kathleen. She's because remember, Joel didn't and them didn't do anything to anybody. They were just trying to pass through, but it didn't matter. You're
right,
outsiders, you're not part of our group, you're not part of our tribe. So we will kill you. They didn't think about the fact of, oh, we attacked first. No, they were like, Sam and Henry, it's gotta be.
hmm
There are other, like that self-awareness that says there are other people out there who may just be trying to get by too. But it didn't matter because it's the end of the world. And I've got to take whatever I can from you before you take it from me. And I think that was a very interesting way to look at things.
hmm you talk about this being a two-parter, like this being part one or whatever.
Yeah.
We get the hints of Sam and Henry at the
Mhm.
end of the episode. We see Sam and Henry, or at least we
Yes.
see Sam, right? Do we see
We
both
see
of them?
both of them
Okay, yeah, okay, we see both of them.
because
But
Joe gets
also we
woken
see,
up. Joe gets woken up.
yeah,
And then Ellie's like, hey, 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 hey.
yeah. We also get this hint of some sort of underground commotion going on happening,
Yes.
and Kathleen's like, we don't worry about that right now. It's like, well, maybe you should worry about that. But yeah, something's going on underground. Something ain't right. And her number two is like, hey, should we tell people? Nah, not yet.
But the thing, and I love the episode because it talks about the fact of the after the episode, whenever there's a regime change, a violent regime change, the people who take over are just as bad as the people you replaced.
Sure.
Because, like, when she said, perfect example, and this is why a lot of people don't understand why we do things in this country the way we do them, why we have a innocent until proven guilty justice system, even though it is kind of tier justice system, for the haves and have-nots. But when she was like, "We're going to have a trial," you're going to do a little bit of time. I mean, you're guilty anyway. And then when she walked out, she was like, "Man, kill all of these people. We're not having a trial."
Yeah.
Like, if you were better than you should be, you should aim to be better than Fedra. But she
Right.
didn't. She didn't try to be better than them. She turned out to be just as bad as them because the things that she's doing are the same tactics that they used. And you saw,
Friend of the show, Lauren always says, hurt people hurt people.
yep, and you see why she was hurt. Like you couldn't understand why she was looking for Henry and Sam so bad, and you couldn't understand until the next episode, and that is labeled "Please hold my hand." No, endure and survive.
Yeah.
And you realize why she's looking for them. Hey, yeah, I know you tired. Oh, you just go cough in my face? Okay, I understand. Um, so yeah, you do see why she is so because you killed her brother.
hmm
You killed her brother, who was probably tortured, and he probably didn't give them up. He was the leader of the resistance, and she didn't care because you took from me, I'm going to take from you.
hmm
And I thought that episode, Endure and Survive, was worse than Long, Long Time because Sam and Henry have never known a life outside of Fedra's reign of terror. They've never known a life outside of the QZ. And it didn't matter if they were children or not. The people who are in power wanted what they wanted and didn't care who they had to hurt to get it.
hmm
And I think that to me is a very harsh reality for some children
So
in this show.
what do you think of the use of Sam and Henry in the TV show versus Sam and Henry in the game?
Um, I knew what was coming was coming. It still hurt, but in the game when it happened at the end, I think that was you just man, you better drink this bottle. Um, I stopped playing the game after that moment. Like I had to stop.
Mhm.
It was just a lot. I do like that they gave more backstory about Kansas City. You got to see that. However, the traveling in the underground was handled a little better in the game. You got to spend more time with Sam and Henry, so the pain hurts a little more because it's so
Game.
abrupt in the game. I
Okay.
think in this part, it was just there was a lot of over the top stuff, and so that when you get to the end, you're like, it doesn't have that like safe feeling that the game did.
Hmm.
And part of that is because the agency is taken from you. You're not playing the game, you're watching everything happen. So I thought that was different. I did like the departure with you talked about the underground stuff. I thought that was very interesting that they were like, hey man, you notice we ain't got no infected? That's because we drove them all underground.
Yeah.
And Joel was like, wait, what? And he's like, hey man, all we got to get is over here and we cool.
Hmm.
And yet here comes Kathleen over that bridge. And it's like the disbelief. And here's another thing. Sometimes getting what you want ain't the best thing for you. Because
Sure.
she was gonna get them
Hmm.
until that truck fell.
Shout out to the VX department and the practical effects in terms of that sinkhole opening up and then all those effects coming out. I and I don't know if it was CG or what, but the way it was shot and the way those actors performed in terms of crawling out of the thing, it
Mhm.
looked so fast. I don't know if it was sped up or what, but it had a very frenetic and fast paced feel to it that really
Like
added to it. It's like, oh man, this is crazy.
it was a frenzy.
Yeah.
It was, and I think that was that sense of you thought they made it,
Hmm.
and then here comes Kathleen, and it was like and that's why I said it was it. This episode was worse for me because of Sam and Henry because she knew what happened and why he did what he did. Why Henry did what he did because he was trying to save Sam. And Kathleen didn't give a shit. She was like, some kids got to die.
She said kids
And she
die.
and she's like, kids die. And she was like, basically what she was saying is his life was better and more was worth more than his was.
Hmm.
And Henry made that same choice. And Kathleen was like, no, you made the wrong one. And I'm going to kill you and I'm going to kill Sam.
Hmm.
And that's when I was like, okay, you killing Henry, I get. But killing Sam too, that's when I was like, you're no different from Fedra. And that's when I was like, this episode was worse because even the the infected do what the infected do because that's what they are.
Hmm.
You did what you did because you made a choice. You were consumed with hate and rage, and you paid for it.
Hmm.
Because if you'd have stayed your ass across that bridge,
Yeah, you might still be living.
yep.
And your buddy went and got his head ripped off.
Ooh,
Oh gosh, that bloater was
the
that was sick.
the only thing that would have made that better if he'd have kicked that head and punted it
Oh geez.
like a kickoff. Because I
Yeah.
mean, it
Yeah.
but it was just that episode. Everything just moved so quickly, and I think this was the episode where Ellie realized the QZ ain't so bad, is it?
Yeah.
Like the QZ, hey man, I, it ain't the greatest, but it ain't the worst.
Right.
So I mean, we're hitting around it. Sam gets infected, tries to kill Ellie. Joel is going to kill Sam. Henry grabs the gun, refuses to let either one of them do anything. He kills Sam and then kills himself.
Well, he says, and then he says, "What do I do?"
Yeah. And
And
then
then,
they're trying to
yeah,
get the gun from him,
yeah,
and he kills himself. And it's like in the game, it hurt because you don't see that coming. You like you just if you're playing the game, it just happens. You
hmm
just made it through all of this. You're having this great moment. Joel is offering after he just got finished not liking Ellie, adding two more people to the team, and you're like, okay, it's the last of us,
hmm
more than one, and you're like, oh no, it's just us,
yeah,
and that scene almost broke. Like I almost was like, whew, and like I had to play. I stopped playing. I had to turn it off, and then I came back that same day and put a little bit more just to get past that part, just to
hmm
get to something where it was like, because they get to this green part where they just have this moment, and you're like, okay, I can keep playing this game. The show, to a certain extent, because everything moves so fast, and because the way Kathleen died, and I knew it was coming, it didn't hit as hard, but I still feel that those deaths were worse than Long, Long Time with Bill and Frank
okay,
because you spent your entire life in the QZ in terrible conditions. You did everything you could to survive. The kid survives cancer. They survive a revolution. They survive the infected, and they didn't survive the infected.
hmm
Like you think they do, and they did. And
yeah.
Henry's like, without Sam, my life is pointless. And that in that moment, you're just like, fudge.
One thing that I liked, and you have to tell me, I don't know if this happened in the game or not. Um, Sam shows Ellie that he's infected, and Ellie's like, "My blood is magic, or whatever,
Yeah.
has a cure." Does that happen in the?
I don't remember. I don't think so.
Okay,
I
because
want to say I don't.
that was a very good TV point in the show,
Yes.
because at that point Ellie's still like, well, hey, maybe there's still a chance you can live because you can have my blood in some kind of way because I'm good,
Yes.
so I'll give you some. That still feel like she still has some of that childlike mentality of like, oh, there's still a way you can
Was
still survive this.
and here's the thing. And that's another thing of you don't understand how the world works, and
Hmm
you don't understand how things work
Right.
because that's not like her thinking she had magic blood because she says it. My blood is magic. She
hmm
understands that there's something about me that the infected that I can survive,
Yeah.
but she doesn't understand everything. She's still a child,
hmm
and I think Bella Ramsey does a very good job of coming off as being I'm tough. I can handle this. I live my life. I'm not a kid. And then moments happen and you're like, yeah, the fuck you are. You were still a kid. You don't
Yeah.
understand how this works. And it kind of reminded me a little bit of Terminator 2. Justin, is it Furlong? Or John, is it John Furlong or Justin Furlong? The kid who plays um, John Connor.
I'm not sure.
Remember, he's an asshole in that game, in that movie. He's like spouting off, telling people off, and then when some real shit happens, he's like, it's like, oh, you're a kid.
Hmm
And because he had all of this thrusted upon him, Linda Hamilton's character, Sarah Connor, thrusted greatness upon him that he's this chosen one. And it's almost like that with Ellie. Marlene is thrusting upon her, you are the future. You're going to save us. And she doesn't know anything. All she
hmm
lives is in the QZ. But in the real world where Joel lives, it ain't that simple. And I kind of got that Judgment Day vibe where John Connor was like, I didn't believe none of that shit, and then a Terminator shows up, and you're like, oh, I'm just a kid. I don't know, like I like, and I kind of got that vibe from these two because it's kind of the same thing. The surrogate father, and
Yeah.
and Sarah Connor says it that the best thing for John. She paired herself with so many men to teach John. And when she realized the best thing for John was a Terminator, the thing that was destined to kill her, is the best thing to raise Ellie. And if you think about it, we're not sure that Joel didn't kill kids either.
Yeah, yeah. Who knows?
We're not sure that Joel is a monster. And I think that's the thing that the game is trying to point out, that Ellie embraces Joel because she is a monster too. I think that's something that the game doesn't do
You think
until
that Ellie is a monster in the first one?
I think Ellie in this situation, not necessarily that she is a monster, but she thinks she's a monster. I think she's still trying to come to terms with who she is. And they even say that, where she's still trying to figure out who she is in relation to this virus and the relation to her being immune to it, that it's in her.
Hmm.
And is Joel is a monster. As much as we want to be in rave about Joel being a great dude and a surrogate father, Joel is a monster. He is willing to he's willing to do whatever it takes to survive. And Ellie is infatuated with him, and she respects him, and she's going to grow to love him as a father that she didn't have. But let's not forget that both of them are going to be willing to do whatever it takes to survive. And in this world, that's what you have to do.
All
And
right. So that's go ahead. Sorry.
no, I think that's something that The Walking Dead kind of tried to do. Certain parts I think they got right, certain parts they didn't. Um, I think this show does a better job of that, because just like in The Walking Dead, the infected were bad, but let's be honest, the show's called The Walking Dead because there's that moment where my man says, "We're the Walking Dead," and at The Last of Us, it ain't the infected you got to worry about so much, but the people and what we're willing to do to each other.
Sure. All right. So that is 5 episodes down,
Mhm,
halfway more or less through the season.
mhm.
You said at the beginning, where do we think this season ends? So without spoilers, where do you think it ends?
I think it ends with them finding Tommy and then what they do next. I think it ends with them trying to decide, once they find Tommy, where they go. Because Tommy, I think, has a line of where the Fireflies are, and I think it ends with him pointing them in that direction.
Okay.
I don't think we get to the end of the game. I think season 2 may touch on part 2, but I think the end of this series ends with us going into the leaving Tommy,
Okay.
maybe, and then trying to find the Fireflies.
I think season one is the game, part one. So I think it
Really?
ends. I do. I
Okay.
think that the way they're moving, I feel like the end of season one is going to end more or less how the game ended, and I think season two is going to pick up with how part two starts. More
Really?
or less, I
Okay.
think so. Yeah.
That's a bold choice, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for you.
Yep. All right, folks. We'll put this up here in a moment. I don't know. It's two. We'll figure it out. Y'all don't
Yeah.
know what time is. We'll figure out what time is. But we will be back for
I mean, they
another
know it's late.
review.
It's dark.
I mean, do they know it's dark?
Look, it's dark right here.
I mean, that's just your house. That's you got spooks and ghosts in your house playing with shadows. But yeah, that's it for us, folks. We will put up another review at the end of the season
Yep.
when that comes along. Until then, y'all know where y'all can find us. We try in YouTube, Facebook, also Nerdy Naughty, Nitty Nudie Productions. I don't know what Leroy calls us.
Nerdy by Nature Productions.
Boys to Men, BBC. I don't know.
I'm gonna need you not to say BBC because that could be either be the British broadcast system
Hey, you can take it however you want it, whatever.
or
We
hey,
try
we're not that kind of
y'all
channel.
Twitter, Instagram, Twitch. We could be y'all giving us enough money.
That
Y'all want
is
us to be
true.
that kind of channel? Like, comment, subscribe.
That is true.
You get the numbers up.
I'm willing to do a lot for some money.
There we go. All right, folks. We out. Peace.
Peace. Say bye.